Hello, good morning.
Good morning, my name's Sue.
And Sue is a very dear friend of mine, and she also model stitches for Hands Across the Sea samplers.
I know, I'm very lucky. I am to be so close.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
lovely.
Sue and I met many years ago now, and it was through Sue coming to stay in our cottages.
Yeah, I used to come and stay in the one up there.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And then you moved down here.
Yes, we moved down in November.
In lockdown as well.
Yes, that was a bit challenging. So we're quite lucky, we're only like, well, I don't know, 10 minutes drive away at the most.
Yeah.
A few miles away, so.
Yeah, we get to see each other a lot now. We were so excited that we were going to be able to do lots of things together, and of course because of lockdown it was like we were so near yet so far.
And then we couldn't meet. I mean, it's only recently that we've been able to meet and go for walks.
Yeah, so Sue's one of the Thursday morning walking club. We get up to all sorts of things when we walk. As those of you who saw the Instagram and Facebook post yesterday would have seen.
I must admit, it was very joyous, wasn't it?
It was a really joyous walk. For those of you that haven't seen it, we walked up to Godolphin Cross, and we did both peaks. So at the top of Godolphin Cross you can actually, well, there's a 360-degree view.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and you can see both the north and the south coast of Cornwall. And no matter where you are in Cornwall, the maximum you can be away from the sea is just 16 miles. So when we got to the top, it was lovely, wasn't it?
It was, yes. I was glad to get to the top. It was a bit of a pull. But no, the view is from the top, as we say, and it was.
Yeah, it was. So the reason that the Thursday Morning Club met on a Wednesday this week is that this Thursday today, Sue and I wanted to talk about this little sampler. And we were going to talk about this sampler on the 12th of June, but issues with printing prevented us doing that. And we'll explain why as we go along. We wanted this to be released on June the 12th. Now, Sue shares a love of history with me, and you've stitched many samplers now.
That's it.
Haven't you?
Yes.
And you've done 2 models.
Done 2 models for you.
That's right. And Sue loves all the historical background, and I think probably not just the sampler, but the history behind this sampler attracted you.
It does. It's surprising when you start researching. You never know where it's gonna take you at all. It's really, really strange. And I never like researching until I'm stitching the sampler, because then I think you really get a feel for that person and that little girl, and it's just wonderful then to just explore their lives. And luckily with Mary, she's allowed us to find out quite a little bit about her.
Yeah, she's really spoken to us. I sometimes think that some of the little girls, they don't want their samplers reproduced, and they don't want people to know about them, because you get so frustrated. Every sort of path you go down, you're sort of blocked from following. But this little girl, it's like she grabbed us by the hand and she pulled us along, the story of her life.
And just more and more kept coming to light, and I'd be like messaging her, oh, guess what we found out now, and look at this, and it was so exciting.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I think it was.
Anyway, Mary Georgina Ramage, she was a Scottish lass, and this sampler is a temperance sampler. Mary warns us of the dangers of drinking. The other thing that she tells us is that every man's home is his castle, and when I saw that, I thought that it might appeal to Sue's sense of humour to stitch this for her husband, and especially as they had just moved house.
It's like for our new house, so it's very apt.
That's right.
Really.
But with the little verse, wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, you've actually hung this
We've got, we've actually got a little beer machine and where the wine's stored and everything, and I've hung it above there because I think that's quite a nice little reference. And if we're going for yet another beer, we might just stop and think, do you know, we'll stop.
Wine is a mocker. So anyway, this could be a sampler that you might like to stitch for your husband, for him to hang in his study or his little man cave, because you know every man's home is his castle, if his wife says so. Yes. And also, I think it is great fun to have by a wine rack.
It is, it does, and it looks lovely in the kitchen, and the colours are so beautiful that they'll go with anything.
That's right. Yeah.
Just brightens up.
Yeah. The colours are very beautiful in the sampler. I'll just show you an up-close picture, I'll show you the sampler up close. So the sampler has been glazed with non-reflective museum glass, but it doesn't stop you seeing the beauty of the colours. The border is just so pretty, it's like a little lacy border. Yeah, and we loved how this frame sort of continued this border out into the frame. See, every man's home is his castle, and wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging. It's so funny, really is. We love the little kettles on the stove, and in fact, just before we started filming this video, I was showing Sue another sampler that's just arrived with those two little kettles and
they're like in a little range, aren't
That's
they?
right, yeah. And we believe that's a Scottish sampler as well. So the stitches in this one were just cross stitch over 2 and Algerian eyelets, an 8-legged Algerian eyelet. So this sampler is suitable for stitching on Ada, Ninada or Ada. So it doesn't matter what count or fabric that you like to stitch on, this sampler will be suitable.
I've not really stitched many Algerian eyelets before, but actually once you get into the rhythm, stitching the letters, it's so rhythmic and beautiful, and you've got to work out which way you're going to leave your last leg of your eyelet to lead you into the next one. So there's a little bit of thought, not too much, and it's just really therapeutic, I think.
I love, I'm a great one for crosswords, jigsaws, as you are. You love your jigsaws, don't you? And I think that's one of the great things about stitching is you plan your path.
You have to do.
And you take things logically and methodically. And eyelets, if you sort of plan your route, they really flow very nicely.
Because I did start off and not really realising that, and I just stitched myself into a corner, and then I would have had a long thread, so unpick it, and then you've got to just plan it out.
That's right. Yeah. Mary, she was a good little stitcher, but she did have a little quirk in her border at the top, and on the chart I have marked it, beware.
Yes, do.
Yeah, so but you do need to, and I think there's somewhere
some down here,
this side as well. You just have to be a little bit careful. And
another thing about the board which I found interesting, it's actually longer on this side.
That's right.
Actually, it's not even. And when it came to framing, we took Nicola's advice, and she said often they are framed so that it covers up that little bit, because it's not even to do.
That's right. And I think what happened, she either started here or she started there and stitched this row, this border was stitched, and then she moved around and obviously didn't count down.
No,
and when she got across, she was wrong, but she thought, I'm going to leave it.
Like we often do.
Yeah. Do you know, we agonise about one little stitch that's wrong on a sampler, but the little girls, they didn't. You know, they lived with their boo-boos.
Yeah, they did, and just carried on, didn't they? But
yeah, they did. But anyway, she obviously loved colour. There's a lot of different colours in this sampler. Is there 15 different colours?
10.
10. Gosh, why 10? It seems so colourful.
It does.
But there would be a lot.
I think it's because she's made such good use of the colours that she's had.
Yeah.
When I saw the original, the front of it had faded a lot, hadn't it? It was wool. Was it wool?
It's wool. It was stitched in wool, the original sampler.
And some of the colours, you wouldn't have believed it was that colour.
Yeah.
But then on the reverse, it was just so vibrant and beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's where these colours have been
That's
taken
right.
from.
And you wanted to stitch the
I did,
colours that
yeah.
Mary chose.
Yeah, because I can just imagine her choosing those colours and thinking, oh, that colour goes nice with that. When she does her alphabet, she puts one next to another and follows
Yeah.
that repeat colour. So it would have been a shame not to
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah, a few months ago, Sue and I were walking, and it was a beautiful day, and we sat on this bank,
Mm.
and we were overlooking the Fowl
Yeah.
and the Helford River, and we were talking about Mary, and Sue said something to me that has lived with me ever since, and you said that if Mary looked down and saw this sampler, that she would recognise it as her sampler, and that was,
Yeah,
you know,
because I think that's really important,
Yeah.
isn't it? That the little girl would look down, Mary would look down as we're stitching and think, oh yeah, that's what I remember.
yeah. And she would not have recognised
No,
some
she
of those
wouldn't.
colours on the
No.
front.
Definitely not.
So that's the reason why on this one that we chose to use the back colours, because the front colours had literally morphed into entirely different
Yeah.
colours
Yeah.
on some of them.
Yeah.
So tell me about Mary, the little girl.
Well, Mary was born in 1878 in Westrother in Berwickshire. And it's on the Scottish border, so the border between Scotland and England is that border country where she was born. And she was actually born in a little like hamlet really called Flass. And this is where she's named it on Woodheads, Flass Woodheads. And her father was a shepherd and her grandfather was a shepherd. So I imagine it being a lovely little farm that they were on, but a hard life, I would imagine, that her family
A
had.
hilltop farm.
Hilltop farm, yeah. But we're really lucky because they've actually recorded her birth, and it's recorded here, and we actually get the time of her birth as well.
So what time was she born?
She was born at 11 a.m.
So her mother probably had a long
Right,
labour through
yes.
the night.
Yeah, so she was born at 11 a.m. and we actually get her parents, Thomas Ramage and Eliza Ramage, and we actually get when they were married as well in 1868 in Edinburgh. So that in Scotland that seems to be recorded on there. And interestingly, I've written back, but below it there's another little girl, and unfortunately she's named as illegitimate, and that's only because the parents weren't married. They're both named,
Yeah.
but you always think that stigma perhaps would have carried on
Through
with
the
these
life,
little
yeah.
girls.
Yeah.
So that's Mary, and she had 3 elder sisters, an elder brother, and then a younger brother and a younger sister. The sad thing is, this is the thing, poor Mary died when she was 17.
That's no
Only
life, just 17.
And it was only 4 years after she stitched this sampler.
So all the
It's-
dreams she
I
had
know,
of a
everything.
handsome prince
It's,
didn't come true.
no, it's really, really sad. And she had a disease of the kidneys called Bright's disease, as it was called then. And today, I suppose it would have been treatable, there would have been something.
It wouldn't
But-
have been a killer, would
No,
it?
I wouldn't have thought so. But then it was poor Mary and her family.
Yeah.
And she had such a loving family.
Going back to her illness, it's something that she would have suffered a lot with
Yeah.
as well. And, you know, she probably had it, maybe, when
She
she
could
was
have
stitching
done,
the
yeah.
sampler.
Yeah, she could have had some problems.
Yeah. The
But-
early signs
yeah,
of the illness.
But it's very sad. But it's a sign of the times then, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But that's why we're so lucky having this and finding out about her.
Yeah, yeah. So you know quite a bit about her family as well.
We
don't
do,
you?
yes. We've actually, in the booklet, we
Yeah.
have got quite a lot about her family.
Yeah.
But
We've got 6 pages in the booklet.
I know.
We just felt that because Mary wanted us to know her story, that she would want you to know her story as well.
it's quite interesting. We've got there's an archive, it's the British Newspapers Online archive, and you have to subscribe, it's not very much, and then you can put in all the details, and if there's been any newspaper articles about them, you get to know about it. So we've actually got the notice of her death, and it says, at Flosstube Heads, Westrother, on the 12th instant, which is the 12th of June, Mary Georgina Ramage, beloved daughter of Thomas and Eliza Ramage, aged 17 years, deeply mourned by sorrowing friends. And I think that's just so lovely. It really is.
And what was lovely as well, that not only was that in the newspaper when she died, but in years after, on the anniversary of her death, they posted notices in the paper to remember her by.
An in memoriam notice.
Yeah.
So that just shows how much, obviously, she meant to the family and how she was mourned after.
Yeah, because these people were not wealthy people.
No,
they lived probably a very hard life.
Yeah, they were hill shepherds.
But they found the money to put in the newspapers for that.
And quite interestingly as well, her younger brother Stuart, actually named one of his daughters Mary Georgina.
After his sister, which I think is lovely.
It is. It's a really, really... In fact, it's Stuart's picture that we've included.
Yeah. Her brothers were hill farmers, shepherds. They're shepherds, and there he is with his dogs.
I think it's lovely because if you could see it up close, you can sort of see that his trousers are tied
With
at the bottom with string, like baler twine, like farmers do.
He didn't want the mice to
No,
run
he
there.
didn't. No. But it's and when I've researched it, I've read about her grandfather's obituary and her father's obituary, and it all tells of what wonderful, upstanding people they were. So you can imagine the family she was from. You know, they were very, very well respected.
Yeah. And I think they were probably deeply religious as well.
They were, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because in Scotland in 1843 there was a great disruption, and it's when the Church of Scotland, some evangelicals, split from the Church of Scotland because they didn't like the fact that the gentry could say, we're going to have this minister, and sort of employ their own ministers. They didn't feel that that was correct. So there was a great disruption, and her grandfather, George, actually was the first person to sign the roll for the Free Church in Westrother. So they were a religious family.
Yeah. And pillars of their church.
Yes, that's
as
right.
well.
And so well respected, and it just gives you that little picture. It's like you don't see much about them, but you just get this little window into their lives, and you can just drop in and get an idea of how they were.
Yeah.
So they sounded a wonderful family, and it's so sad that she was taken so early from them.
She's buried, or her mother and father were buried with her?
Yeah, she was buried in Westrother Old Churchyard, and then when her mother died and her father died, they were buried with her as well. And I think there's two of her sisters there as well.
But you're going to go up when you can?
When we can, I will go up and I will visit. And I thought, depending on when we get up, it'll probably be May next year, but I thought I will get some flowers, all different colours. The tulips would be nice, wouldn't they? All different colours to match her sampler, and then I'll go. So I will try and go, and I will try and find a grave.
Yeah, I just think it's nice.
It is, because you do feel quite close when you stitch.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. These little girls.
Yeah.
Sue, when she stitched the old Scot, you actually went to Culloden,
I
didn't
did,
you?
yes.
And you posted a photograph of the old Scot at Culloden. And then when you stitched Anne Matthews, which was your first model,
it was the model, yeah.
You took her to Margam Church, where because in Anne Matthews, the church was the sort of focal point of her sampler.
Yeah. No, I like to do that. I think it's that nice connection that it's sort of special, I think.
That's right. So you've done Scottish for us, you've done Welsh, so the next one's got to be English.
Yes. I've done some of Nicola's English ones myself.
Yeah, a model,
an English
model next, isn't it?
And they've got to find an Irish one.
Yes, an Irish sampler's not easy to come by.
Mm.
We wondered if Mary's sampler may have been stitched in her Sunday school.
Yes, because this is another lovely little link that I found out that Mary's great aunt, Jane Ramage, was actually a school sewing mistress.
Mm-hmm.
So she lived in the same area, not very far away, but I'm not sure if she stitched at the school that Mary went to. I know which school it was, but I'm not sure if Mary went there, but it was called Gateside School.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a sewing mistress for quite a few years and never married either.
Well, you couldn't, because if you married, you were no longer allowed to
and she lived
teach
in like a tithe cottage with the school, so she would have lost that all of that as well.
Absolutely.
So I do wonder if maybe she taught at the Sunday school, or I'm sure she must have seen this, had some bearing on it.
I loved that when you were doing your research, you found a newspaper article referring to Mary's aunt, Jane Ramage, and this was. It was recorded in the local paper, the pupils of the school giving the teachers presents at Christmas, and in 1886 the pupils attending the sewing class of Miss Ramage presented her with a handsome lamp, and Miss Ramage cordially thanked them for their kind gift. And in 1896, on Christmas Day, Miss Jane Ramage, sewing mistress, was presented by the girls attending her class with a beautiful album and prettily furnished needle case.
You can imagine them working on it, can't you?
You can.
Sending it.
Yeah.
So giving it to her. But I think that's a lovely little touch. Again, it's this newspaper. It's only a few lines, but it just gives you that.
Oh yeah.
So much information.
Very much so.
So she was obviously well thought of, and I think she must have loved her job because, well, she never married, and she must have been dedicated to her girls and the sewing.
And of course, like, you know, some women, they wanted their independence. They didn't want to become a chattel.
Yeah. So her great aunt Jane might have overseen parts of it.
Probably, but we just can't say for certain.
No.
Now, Mary's stitch count, let's just look at this, is 191 stitches by 200. So she's not very big at all, is she?
No.
Not at all. So if you stitched her on 14 count Ada, which is 28 count linen, she would be 13.64 inches by 14.29. On 36 count linen, which would be 18 count Ada, she would be 10.61 by 11.11, and on 56 count she would be 6.82 by 7.14. And again, the stitches are just cross stitch over 2 and Algerian eyelets. Now, you worked this with Overa Soie 103.
I did, yes. It's lovely to use.
It is nice.
And 46 count.
Yeah, it's just so lovely to use.
Yeah.
But in the little booklet, there is a conversion for Soie d'Alger and DMC.
Do you know if you use if you use 2 strands, like the DMC, and you do Algerian eyelets, do you still use 2 strands to do your eyelet, or would you use 1 strand? I
suppose it depends on what count that you stitch on. And again, you know, it's experimenting and doing a test area to see. You know, I often get emails, people asking about how many strands of floss to use, but the best way is to ask your needle and, you know, stitch out some test pieces and see what sits right.
Yeah, because I just wondered how it would lay.
Yeah. Well, again, you know, we say like 46 count linen, but if that linen's been overdyed, that linen's been washed and dried, it could have shrunk a little bit, it could have tightened up. It's each piece of linen, I think, can feel slightly different. So always, you know, stitch a test.
I'm sorry, I did test it with the Algerian eyelets just to see a little practice. So I stopped shortly. So
No, that's fine. She is very, very pretty, Sue. Very pretty.
She's lovely because when you're stitching one colour, then you're eager to get on to the next, because it does excite you, all the colours and the...
It does, yeah. So anyway, Mary is available in our spiral bound A5 landscape version, and she's also available as a PDF for instant download. The choice is yours, which you would prefer. She's on our website now, and I do know that the booklets have reached our distributors this morning. They've reached them. They're definitely there. I checked on my tracking and they have arrived. So, you know, those will be on their way to needlework stores all around the world if you would like the booklet. One of the lovely things is that with Sue living so close to me, you've really been able to share the entire experience, haven't you?
Yeah. That's what I found absolutely fascinating, because I've seen Mary's original sampler.
When she came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you obviously charted it. And I, from my point of view, and I think you will all be interested, is to know how you get from that original sampler to this booklet.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of work.
It is. There's a lot of steps, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course it all starts with you seeing a sampler in an auction house, you know, whether that's you visit an auction house, or whether you see it online at somewhere like the Sale Room or Invaluable, or if it comes up on eBay, or maybe you just walk into an antique shop or a charity shop or a thrift store and you find one for sale. You know, I always have a quick look at family history records because sometimes I might just buy the sampler because of the background history, and sometimes I might not buy the sampler because of the background history.
Yeah.
So I always check that out. If you buy at auction on the internet, it can take like a month for the sampler to come. Well, you have to, like say I bought this in Scotland, on the internet, I have to book like an agent to go and collect the sampler, pack it up, and then ship it to me. And in lockdown, in the first lockdown, the auction houses just completely shut, and then in the second lockdown, they realised that they could still have the auctions online, but nobody attend. And what that meant was that they weren't open for you to go and pick samplers up, or the items up. So people had to pre-book an appointment to go and collect something, because they couldn't have, say, more than 4 people in the place.
I just assumed that the auction house had just...
Very few of them do, and particularly not samplers because of the glass. They don't want the liability. So, you know, you've got to get an agent to go and get them. So, you know, you have that wait. And, you know, you want this sampler to come straight away, but sometimes you have to wait quite a while. Then when it comes, you know, you have that thrill of unpacking it and pulling the tape off the glass and thinking, oh, that wasn't what I thought it was. Or you think, oh my gosh, this is absolutely fabulous. And normally it's, oh, this is absolutely fabulous, because let's face it, all samplers are pretty good. And then, you know, you study it, and then you start to chart it. And it's when you're charting it that you sort of really get into the little girl's head.
I can imagine, because you do it, well, charting it, it's every stitch you've got to reproduce, haven't you?
That's right. And on the samplers where you have access to the back, you really get to know them. You get to know whether they have good habits or bad habits, and I think as well whether they're taking pride in their needlework, or whether the needlework they're just doing it because they have to do it. You know, maybe they don't give it as much care as they should. With regards to colours, I pull the colours roughly at the start, but as I chart the sampler, as I'm working through and I'm getting into the girl's head, quite often I'm revising those colours, and at the end I refine the colours. And then luckily with Mary, I had all the colours, so you could start stitching her straight away, but often we're having to wait for supplies to come through. That can take several weeks if they're coming over from the States, or if colours are having to be dyed. And quite often we're waiting for linen, but I had this
You had the linen. Nicola sent me like 3 or 4 different choices of linen, and you get the first, oh yeah, that one's quite nice, and it's quite difficult to choose. I can't remember the colour of this.
I think this was a very light marble pointer, I believe, very light. Because Sue lives very close to me, once we'd decided everything, I literally just jumped in the car and drove down, and it was in lockdown, and luckily it was legal for us to
do that. We both had our masks on, so I was stood at the door. You didn't come in.
No.
Handed it over.
That's right. Behind our masks. So, and then you started the same day, didn't you?
I did, yeah. And also we wanted to try and get it for the 12th. Oh, that's why we said the 12th of June, because that was the anniversary of Mary's death, and that's what we really were pushing to do. So I did stitch it quite quickly.
Yeah. But we missed it by 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So
it's only a week later that you'll see. It's still in June. So.
Yeah. But it was also really lovely for me, because quite often when a model stitcher is stitching a model, I'm relying on photographs, but because I could see Sue, I could actually see the sample, and when we were getting together, Sue was showing me her progress. So that was really lovely for me.
And being a model stitcher as well, you've got to be so careful. I do stitch every stitch. I don't sort of look at this border and think, oh, well, that's it. And if you were stitching for yourself, you get into the rhythm, and you might not refer to your chart all the time. But I have to do, because I have to make sure that there are no errors. And when she's done her own little errors, I'm saying to Nicola, oh, is this how it should be? And it was so good that we could just check like that a lot easier.
And then when you were coming, after lockdown was lifted and Sue was coming round, you could refer to the actual sampler.
Look at it.
Yeah, which is really nice. So anyway, because we were trying to get ready for the 12th of June, we took the partial. Oh, that's right. Oh, you stitched the border so that we could get the measurements for the frame and for the backing board. So we actually had the pleasure of going to the framers together.
That was very interesting.
Yeah, and picking the frame and picking the fillet. And Sue saw how we work out the measurements and about the lacing and stretching of the sampler.
We did that.
Yeah. So as soon as Sue had finished, we had the backing board. Yeah. The frame was ordered, so we laced it. We got it straight to the framers, and at this point we were going great guns.
Yeah,
we had masses of time. We were ahead of schedule.
And then, of course, when it's got to be photographed.
Yeah.
It gets professionally photographed, which I suppose it's obvious when you see the booklets that it must be. It's not usually you taking a quick photograph on your iPhone, is it? But so there's all that process as well.
Yeah, the photo shoot.
Yes.
And, we're very lucky. We have a really, really good photographer, and he is from Cornwall, but for many years he worked in London as a fashion photographer. He used to do fashion shots, and he understands about textiles, and he also understands about how important it is to capture colours correctly. So it was lovely finding him and being able to work with him. And you've met him. He's a sweetheart, isn't he?
But so much thought from Nicola goes into which frame as well. It takes quite a while, doesn't it, to try different frames and just to see which brings out the samples better.
And I also think, I often have a frame in my mind, but I also, when I go there, I like to look at different options, because sometimes what's in your mind isn't going to be the best. You have to see it, don't you? But I think we both, the moment we saw this one, it was a no-brainer, wasn't it? So anyway, we were really on schedule. Got the booklet together. Then Sue, because you had been, you'd formed this lovely bond with Mary. Yes. You wrote.
I've written
the story, which she sent to me. So then I turned it into a booklet. It went to my proofreaders, and my proofreader, she's amazing. She is so patient with us. She really is. She's brilliant. And besides being a professional proofreader, she is also a needle worker as well. And again, I think that sort of brings an extra touch to it. Yeah. So she turned it around really quickly. So we were still going great guns. Then off it went to the printers. And then that's where, the printers had their press that they used for their proofs went down, and with a proof they print off one copy, and the press they use for their proofs is completely different to their actual big factory where they churn out masses of printing, and they can't stop the big presses just to do a one-off copy. So we actually had a 2-week delay whilst they were waiting for parts, and because of COVID and because of Brexit, everything takes a long time. And then when their press was working and they did the first proof, they found that their press had not been set. It hadn't been calibrated correctly for colour. And as you can see from this first proof, the colour of the linen was all wrong in this photograph. There was a cast across it, and it took them 3 different attempts before they managed to capture the correct colour. And as you can see, that is a really good colour for you to see when you buy the booklet, what the sampler actually looks like. And it was that caused the problem. And they tried all ways to get the booklets to us last Friday, but it wasn't to be. They posted them on Friday and they arrived on Monday.
So we were only a little bit out.
Yeah, but we tried our best.
We did. But you don't realise, you just think it goes to a printer, don't you? And then it comes back. But there's a lot of different steps involved.
Absolutely. Lots of different steps. So
to get you your final booklet.
Yeah. And then when the booklets come, they have to be packed and
well, I've just been up to Nicola's conference room, which is another part of the. Well, it's not in the main house. We've just been up there, and there's so much, because you don't think, do you? Obviously, everything. It's in multiple numbers.
Yeah. You were shocked.
I was, yes. All the packaging for it. And
so there we are.
That's it. So that when you get your lovely booklets, all beautifully presented, there's a lot of steps and a lot of work. And I know, Nicola, you spend hours and hours, don't you? Researching and charting.
But that's the fun bit.
It is, actually.
It's humping boxes that are not so good.
No. But it is. That's what I love about being able to research the girls and stitch the samplers myself.
Yeah.
I absolutely love all that. And hopefully you will too.
Yes.
Because there's lots of information about Mary in here.
Yeah. So this will be a super little present for your husbands, I think.
Yes.
Because actually, not only is, every man's castle is his home, but it's sort of like a little warning to them, don't drink too much.
Because I do think it's from Proverbs, isn't it? I put it in. It's from Proverbs 21. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whoever is deceived by it is not wise. That's the epic to it.
Are we going to have a drink with lunch today?
Possibly.
Yeah, we're off. We're going to have lunch now. We're going to meet up with another friend and have a spot of lunch, and then maybe this afternoon some stitching.
I think so, yes.
Be nice.
I'm stitching Harriet Salt at the moment. It's one of the Bristol Orphanage's samplers. Yeah. So I had to pause her to do Mary, but I'm back on with her now.
Yeah, and Sue's already chosen her next model.
I have,
and that looks like it's going to have a nice bit of background history as well.
I've already started looking, but I only and then I stop because I do like to be stitching when I'm researching.
Yeah. And the border's charted.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the border is charted. It's something. Anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed listening to us chat. We can talk all day when we get together.
We can,
can't we? So anyway, enjoy Mary, and you know, think about that little girl and her family when you're stitching her. Okay, well, stay safe, stay
Yes.
well.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.